Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses!
Hello there, and welcome to My Icons, a special edition of the RTGA podcast. I'm Owen Ryan, and with me today is Antrim hurler Neil McManus to talk about his GA heroes. Thanks for joining me, Neil.
My pleasure, Owen. Thanks for having me.
So tell me, who was your inspiration growing up?
I had quite a few. I was very lucky on growing up in Cushendall as part of the Rory O Club. We were blessed really to have numerous inter-county players and high-profile players. We had representation in the 1989 team. Antrim's only All-Ireland final appearance in the last sort of 30, 40 years. And, we've only been there twice. So, we had very famous guys. We had James McNaughton, along with his brother Danny McNaughton, who both played that day. With Leonard McKeegan. And then we had Terence Sambo McNaughton, who was very famous throughout GA circles in Ireland. But I suppose I kind of missed the best part maybe of those careers. Those guys were finishing up their careers, and God rest them. James and Danny are no longer with us. But so I didn't really catch their peak years, I would say. Maybe some of them would disagree. But whenever I was growing up, the kind of the two main forwards for Cushendall were Conor McCambridge and Big John Carson. And they were smashing players playing for the county and playing for a club at the time. And then a lot of our coaching, I suppose, was done by the same people. Sambo himself had coached himself, and my age group was in the same age as his eldest son Shane. And he had coached us at underage right through to county minor and county senior. We could barely get away from the man. You wouldn't even have realised as a kid just how influential in the hurling world Sambo really was. He was more kind of just Shane's dad to me growing up. We would have been in and out of a lot, and Shane in and out of mine. But an infectious enthusiasm for hurling. He and still has to this day. He's involved with our senior club team at home last year, and it's hurling's everything to him. It's everything to our parish, in fairness. So it's no real surprise that we've been able to produce so many inter-county players. Even the current team, we're very well represented, and some smashing players there. And going back over the last sort of 20 or 30 years, Cushendall have probably supplied as many, if not more, inter-county hurlers than any other club, and it's something we're very proud of too.
Was there any particular memory you have of Sambo?
He was incredibly good under a high ball. He was under a dropping ball. I suppose he was very, very strong, and we won a county final in 1999. And funny, those players I mentioned, John Carson, he hit one of the best penalties I've ever seen that day. Sambo caught a ball and won a penalty, and he just fired it into the top corner. And Conor McCambridge, better known as Monty locally, was fantastic that day as well. And I just remember being at that final. It was 1999, so 11, and how impressionable you are at that stage, and just thinking this was unbelievable. And running out on the Casement Park and amongst the fans and the players who were making their way off the field. And, that was a brilliant day. I think that was probably the first time you got a bit of a taste for thinking I'd like some of this. I remember Sambo taking myself and his son Shane on a trip to Burt in Donegal for him to take a session, and it was the first time realising that maybe he was held in that kind of esteem that he'd be travelling for 3 hours to take another team for a session. There, he must know a little bit of what he's talking about here.
Some people might not realise Antrim had a good run of winning All-Stars around that time as well.
Oh, huge. Our first All-Star was won in 1988 by Kieran Barr, who captained the 1989 team. Kieran Barr, he's famous actually. He's played water polo for Ireland and competed at a really high level, water polo as well as hurling. He had captained O'Donovan Rossa to the All-Ireland Club Hurling Final in 1988 or 89 as well. So he was Antrim's first ever All-Star. And then in 1989, Clut, Elgin McFetridge, who a name synonymous with that period, won an All-Star alongside Desi Donnelly from Ballycastle in 89. And then in 91, Sambo won his All-Star. And in 1993, Paul McKillen from Ballycastle, McQuillan's club, Humpy, as he's known, won an All-Star, and he was a tremendous hurler. I loved watching Paul McKillen play hurling. He was an exceptional midfielder, way ahead of his time, and the way that he played the game, very box to box, a great athlete, and incredible striking. In a period where midfielders were very much seen as workhorses, Paul had real flair and real class. And I seen more of him. Probably he was younger in '89, and he was still playing, at a very high level, right up to about 2000. So I seen maybe more of him than any of Antrim's All-Stars.
And then when you started off with Antrim, Sambo was the manager. Is that right?
That's right. He was the manager of the team. So we had a really good minor team. We were very lucky. 2005, we were very unfortunate to be beaten in an All-Ireland quarter-final by Limerick by a point, who obviously went on and done very well. And then the following year, we were beat by a point again by a Joe Canning-led Galway team. So at that stage, Antrim were really brimming with a lot of talent. It's just so unfortunate that we didn't get over the line in either of those two games. I do genuinely believe we'd have won those two All-Irelands had we have got over either. The first step was all it would have took. And then the next year you were playing, in the centre forward, playing senior inter-county hurling, and it was great. But we were very young. A lot of our minor team, had come into the panel, and there was 3 or 4 of us starting straight away, and that would be unusual for most inter-county setups. It would take a lot longer kind of to break in, but I think there was a feeling that we needed to get this crop of minors into the senior team ASAP, and I think maybe that should have been done a little bit at a slower pace, possibly. But look, you're thinking success was around the corner here, and it didn't materialise to the level that you would have liked. But we definitely had some good days, and we had in those first couple of years under Sambo and Woody, who were managing the team, we had made my debut against Tipperary down in one of the club pitches, because we didn't play in Thurles that day. The weather was poor, but one of my own heroes from my own club, who's just retired last year, Sean Delargy, who hurled corner back for Antrim and Cushendall for a long time. He held Owen Kelly incredibly well that day, and those things would have given you great inspiration. Coming up the road, just saying Sean Delargy just got the better of Owen Kelly today. Like Owen Kelly, who's probably my favourite forward of all time. You hard to believe, but then you realise, what does Sean do that makes Sean so good? One of the most dedicated men you would ever come across anyway. But Sean Delargy, someone that would have provided great inspiration for me as a young player.
Sambo didn't play favourites, even when it came to his own son.
No, he was probably harder on Shane than a lot of other managers would have been. Shane and Sambo are 2 very different characters. Shane's now acting in New York, and he's just one of the most fun people you could ever be around, to be honest. He's great crack, great storyteller, but just by nature. He's had a few different careers, and it took a while to make up his mind maybe on what exactly he wanted to do. And at times, hurling wasn't maybe number 1 priority for him, even though he was incredibly talented, obviously. And that would have conflicted with Sambo quite a bit, because, as I say, number 1 priority for Sambo was hurling, and I think will be hurling for all of time.
Did he drop him once?
He's bound to have dropped him more than once. I remember one time anyway, Shane had decided he was going on holiday, and that conflicted with one of our championship games coming up. And Shane he'd have been a strong enough character saying, "Oh, I've decided I'm going on this holiday, and that's it." And whenever he broke the news to his dad, he put him out of the car whenever we were driving home. We were about halfway home from the training station in Belfast, but Sambo didn't mind. He thought, I'll teach him a lesson here. That's the school of tough love. But things have changed so much now. You'd never get away with those things anymore. But that would have been kind of nearly half normal.
He managed to find his way home, did he?
He did. None of us were brave enough to jump out of the car with him right now. We left him to his own devices.
And you mentioned there, looking outside of Antrim, Owen Kelly would have been your favourite?
Just as a forward, I'm thinking back to those 3 games with Limerick, those famous matches. He was just incredible. I don't know if any other forward reached those heights in such a condensed period. You're thinking, Owen Kelly was unbelievable, man of the match. He'll not get away with that in the replay. And if anything, his performance was better again in the second game, and then in the third game, it's only somebody with remarkable kind of resilience and mental toughness could do something like that. Mixed obviously with the abundance of skill they had, he was incredible. I think also, and unfortunately, he didn't get to win an All Ireland. Ken McGrath, I absolutely loved. Pretending to be Ken McGrath out in the garden or down at the pitch, just something else. And one of only 2 players to have an all-star in backs, midfield and forwards. I think that kind of speaks volumes for the man. He was just something else. And the way he would, the bravery he showed, hurling without a helmet, and he'd be up catching ball and hurls breaking left, right, and centre. And he was the heartbeat of that Waterford team. And I don't know anybody who didn't have a soft spot for that Waterford team, really. And I think if anybody really deserved an All-Ireland, it was Ken McGrath.
Antrim had a very successful year last year. You won the Joe McDonagh, you won promotion to Division 1. As we wait now to find out what competitions will go ahead, you must be a bit worried that you're not going to get the chance to play all these games you've earned.
Yeah, so, from a selfish point of view, you're looking for as many games to go ahead as possible, league and championship. We'd want to see the full schedule of games played, really, because it's competition against the top sides that bring you on. That's where you learn, that's where you grow. Very young panel as well, and so the more games we can get under our belt, the better it will suit Antrim. And look, we have done the hard work to get ourselves into a position to play these games, and now there's the efforts have kind of been redoubled because we want to compete, and we want to be as good each day we take the field as we possibly can be. So we're looking forward to it with bated breath, but who knows? Look, at the end of the day, sport aside, we have to do what's best for the country, and be patient.
And now that you're back at the top table, do you have any thoughts on, we always hear hurling's not competitive enough, it's such a small group of counties. What can the GAA do to widen the competition in hurling?
I think the only way is to fund those things. I'm lucky I have great friends made across Ireland now through hurling, and I would have good friends in the Clare and the Tipperary and the Kilkenny panels, and there's probably a level of funding that they have access to because of the way that they've built their brand as much as anything, that isn't available to Antrim, but can be in the future. But those counties do have access to certain resources that Antrim don't. But we will probably, and the longer we can play at the top level, the more likely the chance of building those resources are. Sponsorship, or do you mean more like development funds? I think both, really. It makes sense that even companies and people, the highest standards will want to be involved with the highest standards. So being in Division 1 for a sustained period, I think will I know that's how it works for other counties, so it should work the same here.
Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it! It's over the bar!